What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. I'm going to start experimenting with a whole bunch of different content on this channel. So if you guys enjoy the new stuff and kind of the new style, make sure to drop a like down below. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about it. The topic of today's video is going to be how men have been lied to, and that leads into why the modern man is so incredibly weak. Okay, this is a topic that has been resting heavily on my heart over the past year because I am in the self-improvement space. I am a fitness coach. It is my job to help men get into better shape. And it was always my goal to be able to use fitness as sort of an avenue to show people how they can take control of one aspect of their life, which is their health, their nutrition, and their training. They can transform the way that their body looks and at the same time transform their entire person. So ultimately becoming somebody new, someone that operates differently. And that is ultimately the key to fat loss and to long-term sustainable fat loss and building an insane physique is becoming somebody that operates differently. Becoming somebody that operates with a different set of principles, with a different set of beliefs. And as I continue to coach men through this extremely transformational process, I'm finding that a lot of the people that are coming to me have just been lied to. And they're extremely weak when they first come to me. Like they've been worn down because society has constantly been telling them certain things. I'm going to go over why specifically that lie has been told to people and what are some ways that we can ultimately fix it. Okay, so the reason why the modern man is so weak is because our view of the perfect man has been incredibly distorted. Now, I'm a Christian, all right? So in my opinion, the perfect man is Jesus. And that is who we all should be looking towards to be like our ultimate guide in terms of what should a man look like? How should a man operate? How should a man live? And at the end of the day, our society, including Christianity, so Christianity as a whole, has done a really, really bad job about portraying who Jesus actually is, and instead they're focused on pushing this extremely mainstream version of Jesus. The mainstream version of Jesus is extremely tolerant, extremely peaceful, extremely docile, and extremely feminine, okay? These are the main attributes of Jesus that are being pushed upon modern men. I don't care if you're Christian or not. This is what we're being told. We're being told, oh, don't be toxically masculine. Don't have your own opinion. Don't offend other people. You should be constantly walking on eggshells. Be careful because you're a man and you have a lot of strength. You know, you don't want to be imposing in conversations. You need to come off as weak. You need to come off as docile. Okay, so these are what ultimately men are being told that they need to do in order to be accepted into society. What we completely forget about Jesus and about our God is the fact that our God is wrathful, our God is vengeful, our God is jealous, and ultimately our God is just. And Jesus is all of those things. I even had a guy reach out in my DMs once because I had talked about these aspects of Jesus Christ. I had talked about these aspects of our God, the Christian God. And he said, no, he's like, actually, Jesus would never hurt anybody. He said, then that would be wrong. He would be sinning if he hurt anybody. And I said, do you really think that he didn't hurt anybody when he was overturning the tables, when he had a literal whip driving people out of the temple? And those were people that were profiting off of Christianity. Like at the end of the day, Jesus took them and cast them out. And what you have to keep in mind that with Jesus's teachings at the time, he was incredibly polarizing. He was not this person that just walked around that was totally fine with everything that people were doing. You know, he hung around with tax collectors and sinners, but that's because they repented. At the end of the day, that's because they were coming to him in order to be transformed, in order to be sanctified. They were coming to him in humility versus the other people that he was also opposing. For example, the Pharisees, they were people that were struggling with hubris, people that were struggling with pride. And he was bringing them down and raising others up that would come to him from a place of humility. Okay, so there are these two different aspects with Jesus, where he's incredibly merciful, he's incredibly loving, but at the same time, he is incredibly just. And what does that mean? That means casting those out who do not turn to him. And this is what you really have to understand about being a man, is that both of these same aspects that you see with Jesus are also incredibly important in your person, in how you go about living your life. You cannot be too much on one side or too much of the other. And this whole docile, mainstream version of Jesus that everybody is preaching is incredibly, incredibly harmful to society, but society doesn't realize it, okay? Because basically, as time goes on, what you realize is that we preach more about how men need to bring themselves down. Men need to basically be as tolerant as they possibly can, not stand for anything, as to not hurt other people, as to not seem imposing on other people. And yet that creates weak men. And weak men are far less emotionally stable. Weak men ultimately hurt more people. And weak men is ultimately what causes an entire society to fall into hard times. And then the hard times is what creates the strong men, and then the strong men create good times. And that cycle continues. Now, how do we go about fixing this? All right? And one of the main things that I want to talk about with the fix is from the perspective that the first sin of man, the sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden, it wasn't being angry. It wasn't being wrathful, all right? We weren't hurting somebody physically. That wasn't the first sin of man. The first sin of man was being passive, all right? Now I want you to think about, what exactly does that mean? The first sin of man was being passive. Because the truth is, he made the mistake of not controlling Eve the way that he was supposed to, because he was put in a position of authority over her, and he ultimately listened to her. He listened to her, and he let her alone with the serpent in the garden. He let her get deceived, essentially. So his first sin was ultimately being passive. And so our job as men, as Christian men, is to be a leader. And if we are not being a strong, imposing, authoritative leader, then we are actually sinning, because that is what God is calling us to do. Being called to be a man is being called to leadership. Now, some people, they might not be as overt with their calling, in terms of some people might be called to lead in another aspect that maybe is not, marching at the front of the battle line. But at the same time, every single man needs to practice some form of leadership. And I'll get into a little bit more about what that means and what that looks like. So number one of the biggest fixes, things that you can do and implement into your life in order to practice overcoming this painful stigma that's been forced upon you by our society, forcing you into a weak state as a man, is to let your yes be yes and your no be no. This is something that should go without saying, but sadly in today's society, it's not. A lot of men are pushovers, okay? If they say yes to something, they'll say no to it later. They don't live by their word, okay? Don't say that you're going to do something and don't do it. Now, this is exactly why the men that come to me for fitness coaching are able to transform over a series of 6 months and practically become a new person. It's simply because they start practicing letting their yes be yes and their no be no. Because when they say that they're going to do something, for example, the example that I have written up here is waking up in the morning. It's kind of funny. Like, people have the morning routines. They get up, they take a cold shower. The reason why that is so powerful is because when you say that you're going to do something as a man, and then you end up doing it, you fulfill your calling. You fulfill your calling as a man, and you're honest. You're true to your word. You're true to what you said that you were going to do. That draws you closer to God, because God is truth. God is honest. God is logical. When he says that he's going to do something, he does it, if that makes sense. So this is going to draw you closer to God. Just simply being more truthful, letting your yes be yes and your no be no, even when it is difficult for others to accept that. Number 2, have a firm footing in what you will tolerate. This was one of the biggest problems that I had personally when going out and engaging with other people, with other pagans, is not having a set of principles and boundaries that I would not tolerate with other people. So hold those around you to a specific standard. Like, other people want to be held to a standard at the end of the day. Like, if somebody else is acting up, if somebody else is acting in a way that you don't approve of, it's not very common for somebody to stand up to them and say, hey dude, like, that is seriously not cool. To call people out on their own bullshit. This is not something that happens anymore. You want to know why? Because we're lacking leaders. We're lacking people that actually have the nerve to be confrontational and stand up and say, hey, this isn't the right way to do things. You're not doing this right. You are in the wrong. You should be working on this. You need to fix this. Okay? And that's your calling as a man, is to be in that position. Find a group of people that is also holding each other accountable. This is another thing that can really, really help you out with having a firm footing in what you're actually going to tolerate, is having a group of other like-minded people that can help you progress in this, help hold you accountable. All right, number 3 is going to be controlling your desires. Okay, this is one that I nonstop preach about. I have videos when it comes to overcoming porn addiction, overcoming lust, and ultimately what this points to is celibacy. I've talked about how I am a virgin. I have never had sex in my entire life, and I don't plan to have sex until I end up getting married. And the reason why I do this is because I have seen my friends go down the path of trying to get as much gratification as they possibly can out of this side of things. And it never leads anywhere. It never leads to anything good. It always leads them off the path. It always leads them away from God. So whatever this looks like to you, whether it's controlling your porn addiction, working towards becoming free, desexualizing your brain, this is incredibly important. And also making sure that you are not masturbating, that you are not seeking the easy sources of dopamine, that you are not seeking easy sources of pleasure. Now, this comes right into the next point, which is something is always going to be your master. So as humans, we always crave leadership. Like, we crave somebody to be ahead of us, to tell us what to do. In my opinion, I think that part of our nature points us to God. Like, it ultimately points us to the deity that created us. But what you have to keep in mind is that something is going to be there. And so you have this void, and you can either fill it with the things that are going to bring you up, the healthy addictions, or you can ultimately fill it with something that is going to bring you down. I even hesitate to call things like working out regularly or taking cold showers or having specific habits as addictions, because they're so positive. They're having a positive impact on your life. What you need to do is you need to start tying your dopamine to doing extremely hard things. And when you do extremely hard things, that is when you are supposed to get that dopamine hit. You're not supposed to get that dopamine hit just from opening up your phone and having access to thousands of naked women. That's not where it's supposed to come from. It's supposed to encourage you towards something. So keep that in mind. Something is always going to be your master. So you can either place something as your master that is going to be better, that is going to be helpful, that is going to be godly, or the vices are going to take its place. This is not something where you can just sit back and sort of coast along and be like, oh, like it's really not that bad, you know, my problems really aren't that bad. That points back to the first sin of man, which is passivity. You cannot be passive. You have to be actively choosing your master every single day. Number 5 is going to be stop being so nice. Like, this sounds funny, but at the end of the day, men are just way too nice. Because if you genuinely act on these first 4 principles, what you'll understand is that some people are just going to think that you're an asshole in today's society. And that's totally fine. Like, some people, you need to be blunt with some people. You have to stick your flag in the sand. You have to stand for something. And some people are not going to like you because of that. And that is something that you need to accept very early on, is that if you are actually going to stand for something, somebody else is not going to like it. But that's exactly what you're supposed to do. It's exactly what you have to do to live out your calling. It's exactly what you need to do as a leader. Like I said, not all people are in these super obvious places of leadership, but I'm telling you right now, if you are a man, you have other men looking up to you. You have other people that ultimately you can be an example to. So make sure that you are being the best example that you possibly can. All right, so stop being so incredibly nice. Stop being a pushover. There's this whole idea that Jesus was this huge pushover, you know, that he would just let other people walk over him. At the end of the day, becoming a man is ultimately understanding your God more. And the God that you worship has multiple aspects. Don't hide the aspects of your God that ultimately don't conform to what everybody else is telling you need to act like, what you need to look like, what your life needs to look like. Because at the end of the day, you are made in his image. And so that means that you need to reflect him in all of his aspects. You need to seek to be just. Like, you should hate your sin. So at the end of the day, make sure that you are taking into consideration all of the aspects of God, because you are made in his image, and this will allow you to feel so much more complete as a man. I can speak from personal experience that when you start living these things out, when you let your yes be yes and your no be no, when you take a firm footing on what you actually believe in and stand behind it, when you control your desires, when you start to learn to have control over your own life and you don't feel like you're just getting pushed around by the whims of your body, by the urges that your body has, once you start to realize, hey, I have control. It doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter if other people think that I am being intolerant for saying something that offends somebody else, because I have decided to stake my flag in the sand. So something is always going to be your master. Make sure that you have the right master. If you guys enjoyed this video, drop a like on it. Drop some comments down below. Let me know what you guys think of this content, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Peace.